Hello, welcome along here. In this video I'm going to talk about the Microsoft 365 Discovery Report, which I have available. What it does is it takes a view of your tenant, and if I look at this page here and scroll down through these instructions, you'll see what it does. Basically creates some reporting of the entire tenant in terms of workloads. So you get all the, obviously the Exchange Online, the mailbox side, the users and shared, but you also get all the OneDrive usage, the SharePoint, the Teams, security groups, Azure AD device joins, and you can see all the information on there. So quite an extensive report, all compiled into a nice single spreadsheet at the end for your tenant. So really you get a good view of all of the different workloads in your tenant, especially good if you're doing a migration, if you're taking everything from a source to a new destination, consolidation work. You can use these reports to say exactly what do I have in the tenant, what do I need to migrate, or how much of it am I going to leave behind, how much of it do I not care about. But at least having that complete visibility over everything that is in the tenant, that is where the important thing is to start with. So this is what the script looks like. We run it through PowerShell 7, and generally it's best to put it in a folder on your local C drive, just called C drive scripts. That's the best place. You can change it if you want to. If you want to, it is coded inside there. You can change that location by all means. But obviously what I want to do now is, before we just run in and just run it, there's some setup that you need to do on the source tenant to be able to access the data in the first place. There's some application registration that we need to do, and also a PNP registration inside the tenant for SharePoint. So before I go through that, I want to talk to you about the rights that are required as well to run this, because you don't need to have global admin to get that information out. If I come back to these instructions that are provided here, you can see administrative rights required. You can see I've got in there that we are asking for global reader and Teams administrator. Now, also it depends on how much SharePoint data, how your SharePoint is configured. I'm going to go through a couple of options with gaining rights as an admin for users that you're running the report on in SharePoint. So we'll cross that one when I do the setup. But it is important that you don't require the global admin to get this data out. So the first step really is to go into your console, and we're going to create a user that has those rights to be able to get to that information with the global reader and the Teams admin. So what I've done here is look at active users. I've created an account. If we go down the bottom, actually I'll just search for it. You can see what it is. I just called it Reporter, and it's quite good because then once you're finished you can always go and delete it. So really with the Reporter, if we look at the rights I've given it, you can see here. Now I have made this one a SharePoint administrator, only because I'm not exactly sure in this tenant how the SharePoint is laid out. That could be the case with you as well, and therefore I've added that in. I've added the global reader and the Teams admin as well. So we're going to look at the sites and see if we can pull this one back a little bit, but for now that's okay to leave in there. So really that's a reporter. When we do connect to the tenant to run the report, that's the account we're going to use. And really the next stage is to get the application registration done. So what you do is you go down here to Identity, and that'll take you into the Entra ID side of the house. And we're going to look at if you look down here on Applications, we've got App Registrations, and we're going to create a new registration here. So we'll give this a name. We'll call this one Visa M365 Discovery Report. Single tenant is fine, and we can just hit register there. Now all of these instructions on how to do this, that is in that document. Let me just slide this one in for you so you can see. As you can see here, there's full instructions through the documentation that comes with that. You can see what you need to get done. I'm going to run through it just on the console itself so you can see what's going on, but we do refer to that document as we're going through with the rights that we need. Okay, so now importantly, these two items here, the application ID and the directory ID, we're going to need to grab those out as a first step there. So what we do is inside that C drive scripts folder, you'll find there what came with the script itself is an XML file. Now if we look at that XML file, let me just bring that up for you. You'll see that the default one has obviously just got these placeholders in here, but what you need to do with it is we need to take the client ID, place it in here, and then the tenant ID. So I'm going to do that straight away now while we've got this one open. So we'll copy this to clipboard, and then drop it into there. We'll do the same thing for this one, and that goes into here. The certificate we'll come back with. We haven't created that certificate yet, so we'll revisit that one in a minute, but in the meantime we'll just put this one away. So now we need to go and add the permissions in that that tell this application what it can see inside the tenant. So we're going to go to API permissions here, and we're going to be adding some. So we're going to go to the Microsoft Graph. They're all Graph, and they all are application permissions inside Graph. And we're going to grab quite a few of them. So let me just start off at the top here, and we're going to look for the BitLocker key, which is read all. Now what it will do, that actually just allows it to be able to see the keys if they do exist, and it will report that they do exist. It won't actually show the key itself in the output for the script. So that's important to note. Now let's have a look at the directory. And if you're going through, you could also just go and type the name up at the top, but we're going to go directory read all. I need to have domain read all. And coming down as well, we need group read all and group member read all as well. Now we do have the user read already. That will be a default item, which is already set there. We can go and check that it's there. In there we go to user. You'll find, because it's actually sitting in here, but we do need to choose read all. The user read is obviously there already. We'll keep that one there. We won't remove that one. And we do need to have the user authentication method as well, which is this guy here. And that's a read all as well. So we're going to add those permissions in. We'll get quite a list come up here. Oh, and my apologies, we need a last one as well, the organization as well. Let me just go and find the, sorry, it's scrolling a bit fast here. And it is organization, and that's a read all as well. So we should have these 9 permissions here, which we would then go and grant the consent for. And there we go, that is all done. Good. Now we're not going to be using client secret as such. We're going to use a certificate, which means that the connection to the API can only be done on a machine that has the certificate installed, even if they did have those API details. That's the preference I like instead of the client secret. It means it's a bit more secure on that workstation side. It does mean you've got to create a local certificate and upload it, but it's pretty easy to do. I'm going to show you how to do it. If we drag in those instructions that I had over again, you'll see that is the small little block of code to get that done. So all I need to do here is grab that code out there, and I will then drop it into the PowerShell window here. And that will, as you can see, has created a certificate inside the C drive scripts for me, which is that. So now all what I need to do is just go to certificates here and hit certificate and do the upload. So you do the upload certificate, and then you can do a select file. I'll just do that in the background there, like so. That'll upload that certificate for us, and we hit add, and that goes in. So we need to keep that obviously on the local drive on the machine that you're running the script with, but that serves as our little password for this API. Now from here though, what I will need to do is make that a bit bigger so I can see the whole thumbprint, because it's the thumbprint of this guy that we need to put into the certificate item here. It goes in just like that. So with that one done, you'll notice that we still need to grab the ID for that PMP registration. We haven't done that application registration yet. We can do it manually. It's in the instructions on how to do that. In fact, if I drag that across, you'll be able to see where that comes from. Let me just bring that in for you here. See, there is a single command to run. If you want to run it through the script itself, I did put the code in there so you can do it. So if you run the M365, grab that, and you'll see the R there, which is that register PMP online. That will go and look up the tenant IDs for you, and you can see, let me just drag that down, it's trying to log in. We're going to use the Cozy Mouse account, which just key in there. So Okay, and you can see that will check it out and go and register it if it needs to. If it finds one already there, it will just tell you that it's already there. And but as we said, the main thing is here is we need to grab that ID. Now once that comes back with success, it'll wait a few seconds, but it will go and create that for us. And as it does so, it'll prompt for that login again and ask us what we want to, we'll make sure that we're happy with that, which we are. We accept that, and that will force all those in there. Now if I go back up the script here, you can see some of the output it's done there is telling us what that the thumbprint and the like there, because it obviously creates a local certificate as well as for that. So what we do need though out of that, if I come down here, I'm just going to exit from there, because what we do need to do is now plug in that the client ID off of the application registration there into here. So if we go into the app registrations, we should find it. If I do a refresh and we look at the ones created obviously today, there it is there, PMP 365 Discovery. And if we look at those details, there's our client ID, which we need to then copy that into there, which will bind that through nicely. We'll hit save on there. And really, once we've done that, we're ready to kick the script off and have a look at it. But I do want to show you this. If we look in the notepad here, you'll notice I had this little file called SPO Access. This is another one which is in the instructions. It is there. But what it does is it allows you to go through the entire list of the SharePoint sites, and it will add a login name that you choose as an owner across there. So if you're a SharePoint admin, you can then add that on, because you'll find that being a SharePoint admin is not enough to do some of the site library reports. It means you've got to be an owner of the SharePoint site directly to be able to do that. So if you're not an owner and you run the script, you're going to get lots of interesting errors come up when you try and access them. So for this example, I am going to run this one, and I'm going to assign that, as you can see, it's the Cozy Mouse tenant. We're going to give it the rights to that reporter at cozymouse.com. That's going to be added as an owner there. This is why I like using the reporter as a UPN for these reports, because it's quite easy. Once you're done with it, just go and delete it. You don't have to untangle any rights that you've added to any other admin accounts and things. So let's run this SPO Access, and let's see it give those rights to those SharePoint sites. Now we will run that SPO Access, but what I want to talk about first is the module needed to run it is the normal SharePoint PowerShell module. Now you might have that imported. Now the thing is, I found with PowerShell 7, if you've got PowerShell 5 on your machine as well, it all gets a bit confused. I've got that module loaded, but if I do connect SPO service, I won't put anything on the end. I actually want you to see this error, because you get that. Now even though I know that command that is in there, so what I found is that if we import that module, using that switch on the end saying use Windows PowerShell does bring it in correctly, like so, and then you'll find, I know it's not going to connect now, but look, there's there, and it's asking for URL. It now can find that service. So it's just an interesting thing. Notice that importing the module at runtime with that use Windows PowerShell, it's a helpful one to have. So now that module is in there in that session, I'm now going to run SPO Access. To that, I will put in the full name here, which is the cozymouseadmin.sharepoint.com. And what that will do is it will connect in there, and you can see it's now asking for the logon to get in there, which I'll use as my admin, like so. Now it's asking now for the UPN of the account we want to give the rights to. Now this is going to be that reporter at cozymouse.com, and with that in place, that will now go through every site. As you can see, it's now adding that account in. There's not too many on this one, so it'll actually run through relatively quickly. But what it's doing is really making sure that we'll be able to use that account for all of those sites, so I can get some proper reporting on it. Now it's also nice and easy at the end. Like I say, if you just go and delete the reporter account, it's fine, or you can go and reverse that and remove those rights to those SharePoint sites afterwards, which is often a good thing to do as well. Alright, well with that done, we are actually ready to run it now. So if I run M365 Discovery there, I'm going to make that a bit bigger so you can see what's going on in there. But the option we have there is the first one, A. That will check that all of the modules are installed correctly, or your PowerShell modules, and you can see it runs through pretty quick. They are. If it can't find any of those on the system, it will prompt you to install them. And in fact, even if you start running the reports and you don't have the modules, it's going to ask you to install them. So that's obviously quite handy. Now we can run the reports individually, and they'll create separate CSV files. And you can see these other ones, the Orca and the MCCA. I've just put links in there to make them nice and easy. And also, if you're running it with an on-prem, it just runs the Exchange part of the report. But what I'm going to do here is run that option Z or Z, and we'll get that into its running state. What it will do is it will connect to all of the different workloads first, and then it'll start pushing through all the reporting. So I'm just going to run the option Z, and you can see it's going to ask me first of all where my account is. Now I'm not going to go in as the admin. Remember, I've got that reporter account, so I'm going to go in as reporter at cozymouse.com, like so. And that will then close, and I'll jump back quickly into our view so you can see what's going on there. But each one, it's going to ask me for the logon for the different workloads. And obviously if I'm using an account that I haven't used before on this machine, which is that reporter account, I'm going to need to key that in for each one and let it go through. But you can see it's connecting to all the different back-end modules in there, including like Teams. So expect it to have quite a few of those authentication prompts as it goes through. But obviously that's normal. And once it's connected, it'll start grabbing that data. You can see it's already into the unified groups. And we've got security groups. So it'll just, as I say, troll that tenant now and grab all of the information. When it gets to the SharePoint side, you are going to see some more login prompts. So you do need to just bear in mind that, just keep an eye on it. And see what happens. If you get, I will notice if you get an error on that public folder, it just means you don't have any. I got it to present the error, but you can see this one does have, but many accounts or many tenants don't have the public folder set up. But now you can see it's just going to run through each one of those accounts. So I'll let it run, just so, and I'll just come back at various points so you can see it as we progress through the report. Now just while that is running there, I've just brought up the C drive scripts directory in the background here. You can see what it starts to create. It will present a CSV file for each one of those workloads. What it's going to do at the end is bring all those CSV files together into a single Excel. But in the meantime, you can see it is starting to create these reports for you. So I'll drop that down again, but you'll see, and also the log file that gets created as well as it runs through. But we'll just let this one finish and you'll be able to see more of these files shortly. So just about completed on those MFA check items. And it should move on to the next one. Once it's written all that data out, you'll see it just appear on this side. There we go, so it's connected back into Teams, and now it's going to process all of the team sites. So it's going to do all the teams, look at all the channels and all the different private channels as well, and do the whole report about who's got access to what the data sizes look like in there, really everything you need to know about that, the team side, especially like who's an owner, who's a member, and a lot more useful information will be very handy to have in these migration stances. Okay, so after Teams, it'll go through and check what domains are in there, report on that. It does all your license information, and now it's grabbing the info about the machines that are joined, the Azure AD or Entra ID machines that are in there, along with password details, and now moving on to OneDrive. So you can see there's a lot of information being collected already, so we'll just, as I say, let it continue. And some of it reports in real time too, as you can see some of this here, like we can see Bob has got 874 meg in OneDrive, Adam's got a bit, yeah, so sometimes it's handy to see some of these counters that are displayed as it goes through its process. There we go. And now it does all its SharePoint connection. Now these are the logins I'm talking about. So you're going to get quite a few of those come up. So reporter. So I just want you to see what normally happens with that. But what it's looking here as well is looking for different permissions that that it has on the SharePoint sites. As you'll see in the report, it creates a lot of information about this. But yeah, you can see it's running through, grabbing everything it needs. It will go through when it hits some of these sites. It'll ask you to authenticate again. But you'll see now we've added those rights in there. It's going to be less of that, and of course using that the graph APIs makes it a bit cleaner as well. If you run the script previously, you would know that virtually every one of these required a login, whereas now that's significantly reduced, which is certainly nice to see. It was a bit awkward if there's like 1,000 teams, 1,000 sites on there. It was always a problem. So you've got to keep sitting there and hitting OK on it, but it does have to make a separate connection to that PnP Online every time it looks at a different site, because in SharePoint a site is literally its own entity. You can't just grab them all in one hit with these scripting mechanisms. But as you can see, we've done a pretty good job with how everything's coming across, I think, in terms of these logons. I think it's getting fairly close to the end on that. So you can see it's picking out permissions that are directly related to people too, as well as these groups. This is the sort of information we really do want to grab out of these things. So there we go, it's connected those. And now it's going to go through and do the site libraries and look at all the different file counts in every single site library that is on your SharePoint estate. So once again, that might take a few minutes to go through and do, but you can see the sort of thing it's collecting here as it goes through. And it'll tag them as well if it knows they're either Teams connected or just SharePoint only sites. But you'll see that in the report when it's done. Alrighty, that SharePoint's all done. And the last part of it is going through those mailboxes. So I'm going to let that go through. We've only got 27 on this one. It's pretty quick to run through those. So I'll pause again, but jump back when that's finished that. Yeah, so now it's just approaching the end. It'll write that CSV file as well. And then it's going to combine all of them together so it knows they're there. There we go. All the sheets into one file, and job done. Excellent. Now it does have some extra code in there. If you do the ZZ option, if you wanted to, it allows you then to create PowerShell code that will start doing the creation of objects in a target tenant. You actually just cut and paste that PowerShell code in there. So if you wanted to create mail user items or mailbox items there, it can do it. I'll just run through it real quickly while it's open here, but we do the ZZ, and it says, well, what do you want to do with the users as it is found? And I said, okay, we're going to, number 4, create a mailbox user. It will ask what the target UPN suffix is. So if we were doing a migration with one of my test tenants, I'd say my target is going to be planium.com, and what the target tenant ID is going to be. Now I know that one is. And the reason it's asking for these is because they're different to the source tenant, and it has no visibility on that. So we get to put those in. That will then quite quickly open up the sheet, make the changes, and then come back out again. So let's go and see what it's done. So what we'll do here is we'll do X, escape from that, and we'll then jump into Explorer and see that file. So here it is, M365 tenant report with our tenant name and a date in there, one file there. So we open that up, and I'll make that a bit bigger so we can all see it. But you can see it's got all of these items. Now, how I designed it was so that you can use your filters effectively to get the data that you want out. So you can see here all our users, all the information around the accounts, the total sizing, deleted items, last logon dates, OneDrive. I mean, there's a lot in here, including all the delegate items, all the email addresses, last name, UPN suffix, and as you can see here, now this is the coding that was put on by that other script at the end. So you can see here all these items here, what you would use to create those in the target tenant. So therefore you've got, if we make it a bit bigger, you can see that's what the target would be. If we've got UPN suffix will become planium.com, identity, then you've got what the password you could set to a random one, and then you've got the create mailbox PowerShell command, which would do that. So it's just a nice easy way of creating accounts in the target if you needed to. But essentially this is our discovery information. That only happens on the end if you do that ZZ option at the last part. But what it has in here, I mean, even things like calendar permissions, is there anything in the calendars which is not standard? So as I say with the filters, if you go and add the filter in there, what you can do quite easily is say, okay, I'm going to turn off anonymous and default. That wouldn't leave much for this tenant. There isn't really anything there. But if you had extra rights on any of those mailboxes, you'd see that appear in that. But if we look at here, we've got SharePoint Libraries. You can see all the different libraries. Are they Teams? Are they catalog sites? Are they not? What's the document count? SharePoint site permissions. And this is where we'd say, okay, great. The filters are really good to look at this data, because you might say, okay, is it Teams connected? I want to say false, because it'll only show then the SharePoint sites, and obviously we've got the false in there for the Teams channel. But what I'm interested in here is saying, okay, I want to have a look at a particular site, and I want to say, yes, I want to look at this company data one, and I'll see then who has got rights in there. Which are just these groups. But what I would do is say, okay, let's have a look at all, and you could have a look at the permission names instead, and if there's any particular people there, you can grab those as well, sort by that. You can say, well, who's actually got sites that have the full control, and you can see there's our breakdown there. I mean, really, just as I say, there's hundreds of usage for this type of information, and the filters do really work well in terms of looking at what you have. SharePoint Sites, this is the overall site, and you can see Teams connected, true or false, and you can work out what your landscape looks like there. OneDrive, really what the OneDrive usage is and when they were last modified, and what the URL to get to those is. Password details, who's got what their password, when it was last set, does it expire, is it a federated account, any of these items here. Then moving on to things like the Azure AD Devices, what's joined, what is not, what is managed by MDM, are they compliant, are they not, and the different versioning of Windows, which is good. Licenses, what you have, how many have been used, what's available, all good to go there. And if we keep moving across, you see we have the domains, what we have for our domain structure. And then also Teams members. So we've got Teams members, Teams channels, and also Teams sites. So I'll talk about these individually. We've got Teams here. You can see, okay, this is our list of all the teams. This is our storage used in each one, a good basis for what is in Teams, great. But what I'm interested in here is looking at Teams members, because here you can do the breakdown of the reverse. So this is where these filters come in good again, because I can say, okay, I want to have a look at the Teams name. I just want to have a look at let's say Project Busybody, and say, okay, who is a member of that team and are they owners? Great, I get my list in there. But I might say, okay, Bob Green, let's do the reverse. Let's have a look at, if I look at this here, I can say select all. I just want to have a look at Bob Green. And you can see there, Bob is a member of these teams. So it's quite handy to do it the reverse way. And then of course you've got Teams channels as well. You can do the same thing. If I do a filter here, I can look for Bob Green again, and I can see what he is a member of different channels inside these teams as well. So that's a handy one to have. Then MFA, you can see who's got MFA set, who's got it set up, who's got a password set, what they're using for different application methods, whether they're using the Authenticator app or their phone, and you can see the layout happens here. And also when they last accessed it through MFA as well. So MFA, is it set up, yes or no? You can see this is quite a good listing to see what's going on with your user base in terms of MFA. Then we've got list of guest accounts. Pretty simple there, and contacts, not many contacts in there, but if we look at then DL list, so distribution lists, it'll show what they are, which is a good thing to have if you're going to be recreating those. And then the deal members. So you can see there's our list, and you see members. And once again, you could look at it and say how many deals is Bob Jones a member of, or who is a member of like the ME test group, and just have that information and filter that out, which is definitely handy to have. Then you got public folders. See what the content is there. Hopefully they're going away for most people. Nobody ever likes public folders, seriously, but sometimes they exist and sometimes you need to report on them. So that's why I've done it in this tenant, just to list them up there. Then you can see security groups. If you've got these installed on the tenant, you can see what they are, what the proxy address is there, and also look at security group members. So you can do the same thing. What members is, what is Bob? What is he a member of? Picking on Bob, but we do use him for some testing, so he's more likely to have things. So you can see, yep, he's a member of all of these groups, which once again, handy to see. Then you've got the same thing with unified groups as well. So unified group members and unified groups, as I say, same sort of layout. Definitely handy to have. And really, yeah, an empty one at the end. So that really is what it reports on, all those main workloads. You get a good basis for what is really happening inside your tenant, inside your organization, and everything you can see all combined into that single spreadsheet, which is obviously very handy to have. So thank you for watching. I do appreciate you've made it this far. Just remember that script is available on that cloudgeezer.com website. Just go to store.thecloudgeezer.com and you'll find it in there, along with all the other scripts that I have as well. So do please go and check that out. And if you've got any feedback on the script too, anything that you want added or you think is missing from it, then please let me know and just drop me an email. The email's in the description, so please go ahead. But otherwise, I'll talk to you guys next time. You have an awesome day wherever you are in the world.